Hey everyone, it's Hannah from Daisy Farm Crafts, and in this video I wanted to show you how to work the stitches for this fun little boho diamond lines baby blanket. So I'm going to show you how to work all the stitches that you need to make these little diamonds, and then also how to make this fun little puff border. And for this blanket I used Caron Simply Soft yarn in white and strawberry and persimmon, and I'm using a size H 5mm hook, and I needed about 3 skeins of the white and then 1 each of the colors. Alright, so to get started for this blanket, you just need to chain any multiple of the number 24. So for this video, I'm just going to chain 24. But for my actual baby blanket that turned out to be about 27 inches wide, my base chain was 96. So if you want to make your blanket a little bit bigger, you just multiply the number 24 by the number of diamonds that you want going across your blanket. Okay, and once you have 24 chains, we're going to start in the second chain from the hook. So 1, 2, and start with a single crochet, which means you insert your hook and then yarn over and pull up a loop and then pull through both loops. And then in the next stitch, we're going to work a double crochet. And this time you're going to yarn over first and then insert your hook, and then yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, and then yarn over and pull through the last 2 loops. And for the rest of this row, we're just going to alternate single crochet and double crochet all the way across the row. Double, single, and double. All right, and so since we chained an even number, you should always end your row with a single crochet. So that last stitch should always be a single crochet. So then you're going to chain 1 and turn, and it makes this nice little kind of bumpy texture. And then now we're going to work a single crochet right into that last single crochet that we just worked. And then a double crochet into the top of the next double crochet. So we're just going to do the exact same thing again, alternating single and double crochet. And you're always working your single crochets into the top of the previous row single crochets and the double crochets into the tops of the double crochets. So, and we're going to do 3 rows total of this white before we start switching to the colors to make our diamonds. Now, when you've worked your 3 rows of white, then you're going to stop just before you finish that last single crochet on the 3rd row. And this is when we will start bringing in our new color. So you're just going to lay that yarn on your hook and pull through the last 2 loops of your single crochet. Then pull that tight a little bit and then chain 1 and turn. And for this blanket, since I'm only working 1 row of the color, in order to save time weaving in a bunch of ends, I actually carried my yarn on a couple of these rows. If it's easier for you to just cut the yarn each time you take or change colors and then weave it in later, that's totally fine. But if you do want to save some time, this is a little bit of an easier way to easily switch colors. So I'm actually going to carry the white for this row. So I'm just going to bring it behind my work and kind of lay it across so I can crochet under it. And for this row, I'm going to work half double slip stitch. And that means I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook right into that first white stitch, yarn over and pull back through. And then I'm going to pull that loop directly through the 2 loops on my hook. And that's a half double slip stitch. So again, yarn over, insert into the top of the next stitch, pull back through, and then pull directly through those 2 loops. And I am going to work 11 of the half double slip stitch before I do my first puff stitch. So I've done 2, 1, 2, 3, 10. You can see how this white yarn just kind of comes along with me. 11. All right, and then on this 12th stitch is when we're going to work our first puff stitch. And you're going to do that by yarning over and inserting your hook, pulling up a loop, and then yarn over again, insert your hook and pull up a loop, yarn over a 3rd time, insert your hook, pull up a loop, and then a 4th time. And so at this point you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 loops on your hook. And then you're going to yarn over one last time and pull through all 9 loops. And then we just go back to our half double slip stitch for the remaining 11 stitches. Now when you get to the last stitch of the row, since it's hard to pull through with new yarn when you're doing a slip stitch, I'm just basically working a herringbone half double crochet on this last stitch. So just yarn over and insert your hook and then pull up a loop, and this time only pull through 1 loop so that then it makes you have 2 left, and then you can drop that orange yarn and then pull through with the white. And then we're going to chain 1 and turn. And there is our first cute little puff stitch. So now I need to work 3 rows of white again with the alternating single and double crochet. And again, to kind of save myself time weaving in a bunch of ends, I decided to carry the color yarn on this row as well, so that after I finish this first row of white, it will be on this side. And then I can just leave that yarn and then work 2 more rows of white. And then when it's time for me to switch back to this color, my yarn will be there on that side. So again, just a little trick if you want to save time, but it's totally optional. If it's easier to just cut the yarn each time, you can totally do that too. So I'm just gonna start with my single crochet right into that first stitch and carry this yarn along. And then my double crochet, and just keep this alternating single and double crochet for 3 rows. So here's where you can see I'm at the end of this first row, and I've carried along this orange yarn, and I'm just going to leave it now while I work the next 2 rows of white, so that when I come back I can kind of bring this yarn up the side and use it without having to cut it. So here I am at the end of this third row, and this is when I stop before I finish my single crochet, and then I can just pull this orange yarn kind of gently up the side so that it lays across the side of my work, and then chain one and turn. And then we're gonna do just as we did on this row, except we're gonna do 2 puff stitches this time. And you know, carry this white yarn again and work our half double slip stitches. So this time we're going to do 8 before we work our first puff stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we'll work a puff stitch. So yarn over and pull up a loop 4 times in a row. Then yarn over and pull through all those loops. And then we work 5 half double slip stitch before the next puff. Oops. And then just work our slip stitches to the end. All right, and then now we can just see how those are spaced out, starting to form our diamond. So at this point, I think that's all you really need to know as far as working the stitches. Going forward, what you really just need now is the counting for how to space out each of your diamonds. So I did make this graph that shows all the counts for how to space the puff stitches to make diamonds for to make a full baby blanket. I know it looks a little bit confusing, but if you just kind of follow each line for each row, the puffs are the little dots, and then the numbers are the number of slip stitches you need to have between each puff stitch. And then you're always going to have 3 rows of white in between each of the puff rows. So I do have a printable of this chart on our website, daisyfarmcrafts.com, and I also have the full written pattern that has all the counts written out if it's easier for you to follow along that way. Just look for the link to this pattern in the description. But as you can see, I started out by doing the pink color first and then the orange. And you basically only need to know, the counts for these 2 sets of diamonds, because you'll just be repeating after that. All right, and the last thing I wanted to show you is how to do this fun puff border. So after you weave in all of your ends, you'll probably have some to weave in because you'll have to cut yarn every time you switch between the orange and the pink color. So you'll have a few ends to weave in. So after you weave those in, you can start the border. And I did 1 round with the white first before I did those orange puffs. So to do that, you want to start so that the puffs are, the puff side of the blanket is facing towards you. So you want to pull up a loop in this top left-hand corner and chain 2. And then we're gonna work 1 half double crochet per row down the sides. So this chain 2 can count as a stitch. So since we're doing 1 half double crochet per row, you basically want to have 3 stitches for each white section and then 1 stitch for each of the color rows. So this could be 1, and then we'll do 2, 3, and it doesn't super matter where you insert your hook, you just want to be consistent. So kind of just pick a natural place to insert your hook on each of the rows and then just make it consistent. So 1, 2, 3, and then 1 half double crochet for the color row. And a half double crochet is different than a half double slip stitch because you're starting out the stitch the same way, yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, but instead of pulling right through those 2 loops, you're going to yarn over again and pull through the 3 loops. All right, and when we get to the corner, you're going to work 3 half double crochets into the corner, and you can kind of just feel it out, see how it's pulling the blanket. Sometimes it's okay to have the 3rd stitch of these 3 count as one of the corners. If it looks like it's pulling too much after you do the corner, then you can add another stitch in there. Just kind of feel it out and see what looks best. So, and then on the bottom, we're just going to work 1 half double crochet per stitch. So you're just going to keep going all the way around with half double crochet and work 3 half double crochets when you get to each of the corners. And then when we get back to this starting corner, I'll show you how we start doing the little puffs. All right, so now that I'm back at the starting corner, I'm just going to kind of do a slip stitch underneath the turning chain. But before I finish it, I'm going to pull through with this color. So, and now we're done with the white yarn, so we can cut that and weave it in later. So kind of pull that out tight, chain 1 and turn. And now we're going to start working our puff stitch border, and we're gonna just do the same stitches as we did in the blanket. So I'm just gonna start with a half double slip stitch in that first stitch, and then a puff stitch in the next stitch. And I'm just making my puffs exactly the same way as I did in the blanket, yarning over and pulling up a loop 4 times in a row, and then yarn over and pull through all those loops. And then I'm gonna work a half double slip stitch in the next stitch, and then another puff. So for the border, I am just alternating half double slip stitch and a puff stitch all the way around the blanket. So you just want to make sure that by the time when you're working this puff row that the puffs of the diamonds are facing away from you, so that the puffs on the border will be facing in the same direction. So, and then for this round, for the corners, I didn't add any extra stitches to the corners. I just worked them in whatever order it happened to be. So, you know, if I got to this corner and it was just half double slip stitch, puff stitch, half double slip stitch, puff stitch, just keep alternating. Since I'm only doing run row, I didn't add any extra stitches into the corners. So, and then when you get back to the starting corner, you'll just slip stitch into that starting corner and then tie off, and hopefully have this really cute little puff stitch border. So thank you so much for watching this video. Again, the full written pattern is on daisyfarmcrafts.com, so look in the video description for a link to that. And if you finish this blanket, please come share a picture with us on Facebook or Instagram using #daisyfarmcrafts. We would love to see. Thank you. Have a great day.